Hey investor friends, I'm Michelle Markey and today I'm going to talk about Danielle Town and Phil Town's Invested Book Chapter September on Inverting the Story. And this is where we follow in Charlie Munger's footsteps for coming up with an investment case not only for a public company stock, but also against investing in that same company. And this is very important because we tend to have confirmation biases that make us want to seek out viewpoints that agree with our own. And by trying to come up with reasons not to invest in a company, we can better foolproof ourselves from making a mistake and trying to make sure we totally understand any and all potential downsides before we make an investment. And Charlie Munger is known by Warren Buffett as the Abominable No-Man because he's always shooting down Warren Buffett's worst ideas. So it's very helpful for us to consider what might be some bad ideas for investing and then try to come up with a rebuttal so that we can feel more confident when and if we finally invest in a certain company. And today I'm going to do this in the context of explaining the investment case against Costco and also my personal rebuttals as to why Costco would be a good investment, as well as I'm going to touch on Bill Ackman's rebuttals of Chipotle's inversion arguments that he had on the CNBC segment. So it'll be interesting to talk through those examples. And if you also enjoy learning from some of the most legendary investors of all time like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, I'd love if you could please like and subscribe to my video and YouTube channel because it lets me know that this content is helpful to you and I greatly appreciate it. Thanks. The way the Invested book puts this is we take our 3 best reasons of owning a business and come up with 3 reasons not to own the business. Like if we think a business has a wonderful moat, then the inversion case would be that the moat is broken. And this is how Danielle Town said Charlie Munger finds holes in and prevents his own confirmation bias by cross-examining his own arguments and then proving the opposite. The premise and lessons of this chapter comes from a famous Charlie Munger saying where he says, invert, always invert. And Charlie actually adapted this from German mathematician Carl Jacobi, who said, man muss immer umkehren, which literally translates to, you always have to turn back. And I think that respected value investor Lilu put it best in saying when Charlie thinks about things, he starts by inverting. To understand how to be happy in life, Charlie will study how to make life miserable. To examine how business become big and strong, Charlie first studies how businesses decline and die. Most people care more about how to succeed in the stock market. Charlie is most concerned about why most have failed in the stock market. His way of thinking comes from the saying in the farmer's philosophy, all I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. And the book also includes a fabulous expensive errors checklist where these are all the things that maybe an investor didn't do or didn't think through enough before they went ahead and made the mistake of buying a company. And some of them that I'm just going to recite from the top of my head include things like how we didn't do the inversion case for a company before we bought it, or there are no gurus buying the company, and we didn't read 10 years worth of 10K footnotes like the annual report's fine print, and the book value isn't growing, and the CEO attributes aren't great, or the return on invested capital numbers aren't great, and there's no price that we can figure out what to pay for the company, and there's no event, and therefore no price drop. So these are among the many reasons that maybe we shouldn't be buying a company if we didn't go through this kind of checklist to make sure we don't make an expensive error in buying a company we shouldn't have. For the uninitiated, let me give a quick investment story. Costco Wholesale Corporation was founded in 1983 in Seattle, Washington, and it has roots with the former Price Club. And this American multinational has almost 800 chains of big box retail stores, also known as warehouse clubs, that are membership only. And as of 2020, Costco was the 5th largest retailer in the world. And they have diverse product categories such as groceries, candy, appliances, TVs and tech products like computers and smartphones and tires and other car supplies and beauty and home and health supplies, and they also have lots of apparel and books and toys. There's so many incredible things that Costco offers that I'm not going to delve all into everything that they offer, but they provide a lot considering that they don't carry too many items compared to, say, a Walmart, but they have enough of the things that a lot of consumers want to have. And I love their mission, and when you visit their investor relations website, we can see that they have a sustainability commitment, and their mission specifically says it's to continually provide our members with quality goods and services at the lowest possible prices, which I think is just awesome because I love saving money, and who doesn't like saving money? I think that we can all get behind this idea that sometimes buying certain things in bulk can be really beneficial, and other times maybe we should just get smaller amounts of items at a grocery store or from the internet. But in general, I think that what Costco provides is an invaluable service to a lot of people. I love shopping at Costco, where I can get things like Starbucks coffee, spring mix salad, and Cliff Bars on the cheap. And I actually think that Costco's moat is to be the low-cost provider of many goods and services, where they only put a markup of around 11 to 15%. And I think that Costco is recession-proof because even during tough times like what we experienced in 2020, people are willing to grab carts and wait outside in lines that snake around the entire parking lot just to get inside the store so they can hoard things like toilet paper and food. So I think that a lot of customers enjoy the treasure hunt experience, even though sometimes it bothers me a little bit when it takes me longer to find things, but people seem to appreciate the neatly stacked goods and stuff that they can get in the orange and green racks all around the store that conveniently double as storage for all of the extra stuff that the workers later on put out. And Costco has been able to get a lot of float from its members' fees, of which the revenues have been going up consistently over the years, so that's pretty awesome for them. And then in addition, Costco has a well-known brand that is their Kirkland private label brand, and this provides great value. Like this bag of 3 pounds of walnuts was only $10, so that was awesome value. And in addition, they have a great company culture because their employees get higher than average wages, and they also get health benefits and have a good career path. So I think all in all, Costco has an amazing moat. While I'm not going to get into too many details here, just to give a brief overview, we should also evaluate the management and the fundamental financials that go into a margin of safety calculation. And if you want to know how to do margin of safety, feel free to check out my previous videos where I explain what goes into that. And the company management for Costco is CEO Craig Jelinek, who's been with the company since 2010, so that's a good sign. And then there's no gurus or super investors currently buying Costco, so that's not such a good sign. If anything, they're reducing their positions. And then we should bust out Costco's 10K annual report and check out folks like their competitors, which include the likes of Walmart and Amazon and Target and Kroger and Sam's Club and BJ's. And then we should also check out the nitty-gritty financials, which include things like their overall revenues. And we can see that their net sales and membership fee revenues have been on the uptrend for the last 10 years, so that's awesome. But then their net cash has also been a little bit up and down, so that's not as great. But their return on invested capital and free cash flow have been increasing. Like within the last year, they've been on fire. So that's really helpful to see, but also something to consider if they can keep up the momentum here. And now I bring you the first of my 2 tables I created on inversions and rebuttals for Costco, which include the reasons not to buy Costco and the rebuttal reasons of why maybe we could buy Costco. But none of this is to say that we should buy Costco. This is just an exercise to go through and make sure we do this in way more depth than this example shows. But the first reason is that Costco will be a thing of the past because of slowing store sales, and Costco is not immune to the struggles of being a big box retailer like the fall of Sears. And my rebuttal to that is, even during the height of the uncertainties in 2020, people were still cart in hand in lines that snaked around the entire parking lot, and Costco is always improving on specific goods that consumers want. And then reason number 2, there's a retail apocalypse. You get more with the annual $120 Amazon Prime than with the $60 Costco membership. And my rebuttal is, you're paying an extra $60 with Amazon for the 2-day shipping, streaming TV, and goods that kind of cost more on Amazon. Like, for example, if we take these Huggies pull-up diapers and you see that they're a little bit more expensive on Amazon at the tune of maybe $9 to $12 more than what you could get them at Costco. Even if Costco is not entirely on sale, it's still cheaper than what you would find at Amazon. So that's something to just keep in mind as to what you're really paying for. And then 90% of Costco members renew compared to up to 60% not renewing with Amazon Prime. So that's also something to kind of bear in mind as to hopefully debunking this idea that everything's going to move to online shopping. And then reason number 3 is more bulk wholesale competitors like Sam's Club, BJ's, and Box.com are taking away market share. And my rebuttal is Costco grew to 105 million members compared to Sam's Club's around 50 million members, BJ's 6 million members, while Amazon Prime has 147 million members in the US alone. So they actually have a pretty good amount, but Costco seems to be holding its own because it still has brick and mortar locations. And I know Amazon has Whole Foods and their pickup locations, but we'll just leave that to the side for now. Reason 4, millennials and young people want easy, quick shopping instead of driving and shopping at a store. And rebuttal is Costco offers online shopping and features that people enjoy, like a treasure hunt experience, gas stations, tire shops, and travel services. Like we can get really good deals when we rent a car. And Costco's membership renewal rates declined in 2017. And that's because they raised their member fees and replaced American Express with Visa, but their financials seem to be on the up after that year. And Costco is in an inaccessible brick and mortar store, and the checkout lines are impossibly long. But Costco has almost 800 stores with 795, and Sam's Club has around 600 stores, and BJ's has 215 stores. And while Amazon can deliver items to you in an hour to 2 hours, you can drive 15 to 30 minutes to your local Costco and get items now, and they have newly added self-checkouts to make buying even faster. And the last reason is there's no issue or event going on to justify buying Costco. It's not on sale. And what I say to that is we have to calculate the valuation and figure out what is a reasonable price to pay for this presumably wonderful business. So with all that being said, this is one example of how to go through an inversion case, and I'll take you through one more. The second inversion and rebuttal table I created is for Chipotle, where Bill Ackman back in November 2017 went on to a CNBC segment and rebutted a lot of arguments against investing in Chipotle at the time. And back then it was selling at $275 a share, and recently it's just cracked $1,900 a share. So I'm pretty sure that Bill Ackman proved to be right in all of his arguments, but back then maybe a lot of people didn't know. And so the arguments against Chipotle and then Bill Ackman's rebuttal for Chipotle include the following, where someone said there's a risk of more food safety issues with 2015's many E. coli, norovirus, and salmonella outbreaks. So how do we know that this is not going to repeat? And actually we saw this again in 2018, but there wasn't as much food safety issues because Bill Ackman said that they're addressable through better operations and better oversight, and there's still long lines out the door with people clamoring for the food. And each store is generating $2 million in revenues right now, and before they generated $2.5 million in revenues per store, which he thinks it will recover and get back to. And another counter argument is the magic wore off. Investors thought it would be the next McDonald's, and it's not. It's just a quick service restaurant. Why pay 30 times earnings if it's not growing? And Bill said that's when it was at $700 a share. McDonald's has gone through its cycles of people loving, hating, and then loving it again. And Burger King was the dog of all restaurants, and they made magic with it. And another argument against is that Chipotle didn't have to spend on advertising before, and the line out the door was enough back then, but it's not enough now, and having to spend on advertising is not great for margins in the long term. And Bill said, this is one of the least optimized of the quick service restaurants. There's no drive-thrus, breakfast, or mobile apps yet at that time. So with the development of those things, he thinks that this will improve Chipotle's margins. And another argument is, what have the earnings done, what's the valuation in a competitive space. It's expensive for next year's multiple. And he said that the right way isn't to look so much at next year's multiple, but to ask what will be the earnings in 2, 4, 6 years out and discount those earnings back in time. And on that basis, it's a very cheap stock if they can perform. And will they hit their target for the first time in 3 years? And Bill said, number one, almost every fast food company's been able to make a recovery from something like this. And number two, you start layering things like online ordering, breakfast, and longer operating hours, and they will be able to hit their targets. And the last counter argument is there are now national competitors doing fresh Mexican food like Del Taco, Moe's, and Qdoba. And Bill said, you don't think Burger King turned around in a crowded burger space? And store sales are up 30%, quality is up with Burger King, and it's hard to scale to 2,300 units like Chipotle did. It has not expanded internationally yet, and there's lots of levers to pull in order to succeed. So this just goes to show that Chipotle had a lot of room to run in terms of being able to achieve a lot of financial success in the future if it was able to figure out its food safety issues, which it certainly seemed to. So I think that Bill Ackman called it right in this case. Lastly, towards the end of the chapter, Danielle talks about how she wanted to do practice shares to see how she would emotionally handle being able to buy shares of a company so that she knew her way around the brokerage interface. And if you want to learn how to do something like this, you can open a paper trading account at a lot of brokerage firms where it's not real money and you just start off with some pretend money, and then you can practice buying shares of companies and following them if you're not ready to put real money behind your practice shares yet. And of course, you can also do practice shares with real money. And I show an example of how to do this in my How to Invest Getting Started for Beginners video, where I show an example of buying a stock in Fidelity. And you can do this with real money if you really want to. Like Phil Town actually does do practice shares, as Danielle came to realize, because he does his little bit of buying into a company so that he can really get interested in learning all about that company to really prove out if it's a good investment or not, and if he should load up the truck with buying more shares of that company. So I hope that was helpful to you, and if you enjoyed this video or learned something, please like and subscribe, and I wish you well on your journey to being the best investor you can be. Till next time.